Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Alex Flood. Police are requesting assistance from witnesses of a serious and fatal motor vehicle collision that occurred on the corner of Hill Street and Red River Road Friday evening. The crash occurred at 8 p.m. yesterday involving a sedan with a lone driver, as well as a Jeep with several passengers. An adult male was transported to the Thunder Bay Regional Health Sciences Center, where he was pronounced deceased just after 8:35. His identity is being withheld out of respect for the family. If you've witnessed the collision, we urge you to contact Thunder Bay Police Service. The City of Thunder Bay could be reimagining yard maintenance rules, allowing locals to plant boulevard gardens and giving added leeway on the naturalization of yards. Thunder Bay resident Kyla Moore presented the idea to City Council this past week. She touted the benefits to the look of neighborhoods by reintroducing native plant species and dismantling colonial aesthetic values. Her requested changes are supported by the city's Earth Care Advisory Committee, and Moore assured Council they would still maintain aesthetic standards. She says many of these changes are already in place in several municipalities in southern Ontario, which could help the city in revising its bylaws.
Having a look at all of those municipalities, I think that we have a really good opportunity to draw from that and make kind of the best bylaw that would fit for our city and what we're looking for. And I know there are many people that I spoke to who are interested in this.
Council voted unanimously to refer Moore's proposed changes to administration for review. And Indigenous students at Lakehead University now have the opportunity to learn from Canada's largest software company thanks to a new partnership. Waterloo-based OpenText announced this new virtual internship program at a virtual news conference earlier this week.
OpenText shares our goal to support the journey of Indigenous students and to connect them with enriching experiences to realize their dreams and potential. I'm so excited to be partnering with OpenText and opening a new world of global opportunities for our students.
On behalf of 15,000 Open Texters, I'd like to say how incredibly excited we are about this program and look forward to welcoming Indigenous students from Lakehead University as interns to our workforce and learning from each other.
The Scotties Tournament of Hearts is just over 4 months away. Curling Canada's event managers paid the city a visit this past week, and plans are shaping up well for the much-anticipated event at the Fort William Gardens, which was already postponed once due to the pandemic. Event manager Marcy Herekasi updated the Scotties local organizing committee on future plans, including the status of volunteer numbers. She says after recently opening volunteer registration, they've already gotten over half of the 400 volunteers needed. To get involved, people can head to the volunteer page at curling.ca. The website also provides a number of ticketing options.
Right now, full event packages are on sale and championship weekend packages are on sale. Our opening weekend packages and some premium single draw tickets, including Northern Ontario versus Canada, will be on sale October 21st. That's going to be, a big draw for the community to see their local team play Team Canada, and then we'll be opening the rest of the single draw tickets in November.
The organizers are planning for the event to be at full capacity, but have a contingency plan in place just in case they need to scale back spectators by the time the Scotties begin on January 28th. And 3/4 of eligible Americans have received at least one dose of a COVID-19 vaccine, and some are now able to receive an additional booster shot. But the virus still poses a great threat to more than 70 million eligible people who remain unvaccinated. Ty Hernandez reports.
From coast to coast, Americans who just became eligible for a Pfizer booster lining up to get that third shot, some waiting for hours.
I think everyone should get their booster shot as soon as possible.
It comes less than 24 hours after a CDC advisory panel signed off on Pfizer booster shots for people 65 and older, residents of long-term care facilities, and those 18 and older with underlying conditions, leaving out frontline workers whose jobs put them at risk of infection. The CDC director instead deciding to include frontline workers in this phase of boosters. Shots now available at VA hospitals and at more than 30,000 healthcare centers and pharmacies nationwide. While the booster rollout gets underway, efforts continue to get the unvaccinated to roll up their sleeves. An estimated 70 million eligible Americans still haven't received their first shot.
The unvaccinated overcrowd our hospitals, overrunning emergency rooms and intensive care units, leaving no room for someone with a heart attack or a cancer operation needed to get the life-saving care because the places where they would get that care are crowded.
In New York City, schools bracing for potential staffing shortages as the vaccine mandate begins Monday. Ty Hernandez, ABC News, New York.
Meanwhile, in the States, U.S. Customs and Border Patrol announced today the U.S.-Mexico border crossing in Texas is partially reopening. The Del Rio port of entry had been closed for several days as U.S. officials cleared a nearby migrant encampment that had grown to include nearly 15,000 people, many of them Haitian migrants. Mary Alice Parks has the details.
That makeshift border camp that once had thousands of people, now empty. Most remaining immigrants expelled or moved to other facilities. ABC's Will Carr right there.
We're underneath the international bridge leading to Del Rio, Texas. This is where these migrants made their homes for the past couple of weeks, and one member of law enforcement tells me these conditions were worse than a third world country.
You're seeing babies, little kids, pregnant women, family units, in probably the worst conditions I've ever seen.
Despite outcries from fellow Democrats and unstable conditions on the ground in Haiti, some 2,000 Haitian migrants have already been flown out of the country in the last few days. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas defending those expulsions.
They are driven by a public health imperative.
More than 17,000 remain in the country, many now awaiting court dates to plead their asylum case. On The View, Vice President Kamala Harris speaking out against those shocking images of Border Patrol agents charging on horseback.
It also evoked images of some of the worst moments of our history where that kind of behavior has been used against the indigenous people of our country, has been used against African Americans during times of slavery.
President Biden, for the first time, addressing them too, saying he takes responsibility and there will be consequences.
I promise you those people will pay. But it's beyond an embarrassment. It's dangerous. It's wrong. It sends the wrong message around the world. It sends the wrong message at home. It's simply not who we are.
But later, White House press secretary playing cleanup, insisting there will be a full investigation first.
I think what you heard from the president is a very human and visceral response to those images. The president was not prejudging the outcome of an investigation.
Now, DHS tells us that some 8,000 people who had been there at the border returned to Mexico. Their future and that of so many of these Haitians still uncertain. Mary Alice Parks, ABC News, the White House.
The new roundabout on the intersection of Redwood and Edward Street in Thunder Bay today opened to the public, but there are still some concerns about the brand new project. The newly opened roundabout didn't see a full traffic flow due to the water main construction and bridge work on Edward Street North, but plenty of drivers still came through, looping around the newly constructed intersection. Community members seem to be excited about the roundabout, but also a little worried, as one this size has never been seen in the city before. City project engineer Matthew Medema says there are roundabouts planned in the Parkdale area and at the Algoma and Gibson intersection by Boulevard Lake.
So when we did the transportation master plan and wrapped up in 2019, Edward Redwood was one of the big ones that was identified. There are future locations. We'll always consider it for future. We'll use this as a success criteria too. If it performs well, we may see it in larger intersections as well, but for now, we have those three identified.
Medema says all that's left for the new roundabout is adding traditional plants in the center of the intersection, which are being grown at the conservatory based off the medicine wheel and will be finished by next spring. And it was a day of many possibilities for the Thunder Bay community, with not one but two craft beer festivals in the heart of the Waterfront District and at Prince Arthur's Landing. Mitchell Ringos was on the scene and has the details.
The Craft Festival teamed up with Sleeping Giant Brewing Company to host a waterfront beer and artesian market down at Prince Arthur's Landing, since Bruja moved further into the waterfront district this year. The craft event usually was hosted at the brewery, but needed more space this year with the addition of over 80 local tents filled with unique products and creations. Admission for the event was free, and other than the market, had a VIP drinking area, which hosted a variety of alcohol, picnic tables, and best of all, the whole event was pet-friendly.
And just by the amount of people down here, it's spectacular. This is what people crave. They want experiences.
I mean, it's amazing to see so many entrepreneurs out here and like just a wide variety of skills we have here in Thunder Bay, and it's great to support that opportunity we have.
And with both festivals running on the same day, we talked to co-founders of Craft, Hillary Hookstein and Kate Strange, on the dynamic between the two events.
Brewery had applied for the space over a year ago, and then when we found out Bruja was on the same day, we were really excited because the events have such a great synergy that they just feed to each other, and it creates like an amazing downtown vibe.
And moving a couple streets up was Bruja, the annual craft beer festival, which once again sold out in record speed. This year's Bruja hosted musical acts, various craft beer vendors, along with food. This was the first time the festival was not down at Prince Arthur's Landing, but Bruja organizer Sarah Sadeghi Aval says it was a smart choice this year as they could control the amount of people coming in, and says that next year they do plan to move back down to the waterfront. Aval says some of the breweries couldn't attend this year, but they still had an amazing turnout.
We still had about 7 breweries and 2 that were pouring for outside breweries as well, that they couldn't get their vendors here, but we still wanted to represent them, so we have them in our tent. But yeah, everyone has been setting up their tents, making them look great.
We talked to Bruja ticket holders on what it was like to be back at the annual festival.
Good to have all our friends out here, and it's good to, just not be stuck in our houses anymore, right? It's a good time.
With both festivals having such overwhelming support, Bruja plans to move back down to Prince Arthur's Landing next year, but there is a chance that both events combine into one to create one super festival. Mitchell Ringos, TBT News.
Joined now with Kurt Black. Kurt, great turnout today at the craft beer festivals, despite some odd weather conditions, and the weather conditions weren't so great last night with some local high school football either.
No, Alex, but hey, just like today, it didn't matter if there was rain, wind, didn't matter at all. People were going to show up for the return of high school football. We have all the highlights from last night's action right after the break.